Hi, Valeria. It's super nice to meet you in person. Could you introduce yourself to some people who don't know of your channel or know who you are, perhaps?
Sure. I currently live in Seattle, Washington. I'm a software engineer, and on the side, I really like to study languages and make sometimes language related content on YouTube. And it's usually kind of in the more communication psychology realm of language learning, not tips really, but more like analysis and research. So,
Awesome. Can you give an example? Like, what would be more communication psychology? Like, what is that?
so that's like my penultimate video at the moment, the one that's about like relationships,
Mm.
parasocial relationships on YouTube. That one is kind of more of the psychology and like communication of how you're communicating with the YouTuber, but not really, and how that whole kind of relationship is going.
Yeah, I was watching the one you made about like YouTubers in general, and it actually made me feel a lot better because I feel a lot of pressure to befriend my viewers in that
Yeah.
sense, and I feel like I owe it to them. You know, they're consuming my content, and I owe it to them to be nice, friendly, responsive. But it's absolutely like really mentally taxing because you don't know these people in person. Yeah.
But it's just sometimes easier almost if you're like an introvert like I am. Sometimes I don't want to necessarily like talk or take efforts to
Yeah.
talk to people or, go somewhere or anything. And it's nice to still get some kind of feeling like you're still interacting with people or like just inputs of information. And
How would you say your relationship is with the general language learning community? Like, when did you discover there's such a big community online, and how are you experiencing it in general?
so this is actually a very interesting thing to answer because you're the first person I discovered like a couple years ago.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know how you'll react to this, but initially, I was actually really, I didn't like you. I really didn't like you.
Why?
But it wasn't because of like you or anything. It was because I was kind of, I always throughout my whole life felt special in that, like, oh, I know the most languages out of everybody who I know. So
Mm.
I was like, oh, I'm the best at this out of my whole sphere of people. But then suddenly I discovered you, and I was like, I feel threatened by
Oh,
this girl, Lindie. But that was just because that was the first time that I had ever like encountered such a person that was similar to me. I always felt very different from
right.
everybody. So I didn't really, I was too young to know how to like properly and healthily, I guess, react to that kind of thing.
Mm.
So initially, I was like frustrated that
Mm.
you exist. But then out of but then because your content was genuinely great and you were like such a lovely person, I kept watching you. So and then I was like, okay. It's fine. She's really great. I should do this in a really positive light and maybe take her like I don't know, like advices and just her experience and like maybe just implement some of those things and I don't know, whatever. Um, and only recently, actually, did I start to get into the more broader language learning community, which is on Twitter. I never really interacted much with anybody in particular, though. It was just kind of like I would like something, comment something, and it would just kind of stop there. And it wasn't any true personal reactions or anything. But then after Mary Polyglot's challenge in January, do you remember that?
Yes.
That's when I started more closely like interacting with very specific people more consistently, and it was every day.
Yeah.
So I remember I got much more like with Rebecca Coupelang and I forget what his name is on Twitter, but his name is Joe. He speaks like a bunch of languages. I think he lives in Japan.
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
She
yes.
calls him Joe Sensei, I
Yeah.
think. At least in one tweet she did. But yeah, I just became more involved in the community,
Yeah.
in the good one, I guess. And I just remember walking down the street with my boyfriend at one point, and I was telling him, like, I feel so great to be in a community where like I share this interest
Yeah.
with so many people.
Yeah, those are some good points you make. I guess first of all, I'm sorry that you didn't like me at first, but on that point, I can completely understand and relate. And I think it's totally intrinsic and natural for us as humans to compare ourselves to people. And it takes a lot of humility and courage to try and put those feelings aside and realize that comparison is really not getting you anywhere. And it's just fostering like negative emotions inside of you. And I remember there were some like, specifically female polyglots. I think girls have this with other girls. I've
Yeah.
never felt myself getting envious or jealous of male polyglots, and I don't know any other women who feel that way. Maybe among males, perhaps. But I've seen this with female polyglots a lot. That it's I don't know if girls are just like naturally catty or So I remember hearing somewhere. I mean, it's such a cliche phrase. If you can't beat them, join them. And that
Mm.
really changed my mindset. And I was like, wow, why am I out here trying to be better than these people or trying to show off or whatever when actually I should just be learning from them, joining them, getting to know them as friends. And that's one of the reasons I started doing the series Polyglot Princesses on my YouTube channel, where I feature specifically female language learners, more for the point of raising awareness that there are actually female polyglots out here who have amazing things to share, but also for the purpose of me to get to know these people on a friendship level. What you see online is really not what the person is.
Mhm.
And I've made such amazing friendships with these people. So it's been really good to just get to know them first before you pass any judgments about them.
But it's so easy to just judge when you haven't even spoken to them and just from like what they present and
Exactly.
what you see.
Why do you think we as women or people in the polyglot community tend to have these feelings of feeling threatened, or why do we compare ourselves so much? Would you say it's like that in other communities as well?
I think so, because this is not the only like venue, I guess, of me feeling this kind of way.
Mm.
Because when I was in college, I was part of a ballroom dancing team, and I initially was very good at specifically Latin ballroom dancing. And I was really good friends with this other girl, Isabel, who also was doing it too. And she was also very good at specifically that kind too.
Yeah.
But then she started to slowly get better at it than I was. So she was like going up and doing really well in competitions, and I wasn't. And I started to kind of envy her and then dislike her as well, because I was like, why? That's not fair. Like, I'm just as good, but she's doing all this and it's
Yeah.
better. I don't know. Like, I didn't envy guys who were, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't explain it either, but I wish it could change. But I see it with girls in the language community. They tend to be really envious of each other, and it's actually terrible. And women should be here supporting each other and making each other strong together. So if we get instances where women are purposely trying to break each other down, that's super harmful. Like now more than ever, women should be supporting each other. So
Sure.
they were actually here to talk about this idea of comparison and also perfectionism in language learning and how to kind of get over that. I wouldn't say I struggle per se with comparing myself to people because I've come to the point where I realize it's such a waste of time and I could be using that mental energy and time to be actually studying languages.
Mm-hmm.
But I do sometimes, watch clips or videos of people and they're super amazingly talented in languages and their accent is perfect. And then I don't necessarily feel like envious towards them, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like insane amount of admiration. Like, wow, they've worked so hard, and also I wish I could be like that. But like I said, it took me a while to get to that point. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say your current experiences are?
I would say mine definitely started out like as I described what I felt towards you initially,
Yeah.
but then I started like becoming more self-aware and just like growing up generally, and learning that I should instead I don't know what everybody else's situation is. I don't know like what they're doing with their life or their time or what their values are or why they're doing whatever they're doing. Like, so I can't compare myself accurately or like productively to anybody else other than to myself. So like if I want to specifically get better at Chinese, for example, and I want to get better specifically in like speaking, and I don't really care about writing, then I shouldn't be annoyed at myself for not being as good at writing as other people, because that's not what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
That's something that I have more recently learned to become more comfortable with, like appreciate other people's successes and achievements, but also not projecting that back negatively onto myself.
Do you think that comparing can actually help you in your language learning journey? Or is it completely a negative thing?
I think it can be positive if you're taking it as like a motivation or an inspiration.
Yeah.
But I guess it like depends if you are a pessimist or an optimist in that regard. Like if you are optimistic, you can see, oh, they've achieved it, so it's possible I can too.
Absolutely.
But if you're pessimistically looking at it, then you're going to be like, oh, they already did it. What's the point? Like, why should I even try?
That's so true. And then I also want to talk to you about perfectionism in language learning, which I think can stem from comparison, because what people put out online, you don't see the hard work and the process and the struggles and the tears generally. I mean, personally, I try to make videos where I'm actually showing myself struggling, just to be honest. But in general, you don't actually see the hard work that people put in. And that leads to perfectionism because you think, person A is the ideal for language learning. They don't make mistakes. So me making mistakes is wrong, is not normal. And your solution to fixing that is perfectionism. I'm not going to speak until I'm perfect. I'm not going to post a picture of my notes until it's error-free.
Yeah, I really relate to every single problem in the book that has to do with perfectionism. I feel like, well, so in the beginning of the year, I actually just, I don't know, out of curiosity, I started going to a therapist, and she essentially diagnosed me with having like a perfectionism thing. Not like exactly what, but how, and I started to see how that's affected every single part of my life, including the language learning, right? So in language learning, I feel like part of the reason why I struggle to improve my speaking is because I don't have the time to perfectly arrange the sentence and like do everything before I have to speak and like respond within a reasonable amount of time to somebody. Now that I'm not in a classroom setting where I know all the vocab that all my classmates know and we all have the same exact knowledge base, if I were to converse with somebody else who speaks like a language I'm learning, I have no idea what they expect of me or what things they might throw at me. So I almost feel like I don't even want to entertain that like attempt of trying to talk to them or like do this challenge because I don't know, I'm not going to be perfect at it because it's completely unknown. And that's like such a detriment to my whole like process of learning and improving. I anticipate a judgment that won't come.
Yeah.
And I just freak myself out because of it.
I think a lot of language learners struggle with. And they tend to focus a lot on other skills like vocabulary acquisition, grammar, reading, and writing, as a way to feel like they're progressing in the language, which they are to some extent, but with that, they never get the opportunity to speak. And the more you do that, the more you get better, for other knowledge of the language becomes wider, and then it's actually harder to start speaking. I find that beginners have this innate fearlessness when you learn a language. Like you're so excited about it, and you're like, I don't care if I make mistakes. I'm just happy to talk to somebody. But intermediate or advanced learners, you are aware of those mistakes and you're like, I should know better. I'm not going to talk. And I think it's extremely detrimental to try and wait until you're perfect, People do say wait until you're ready to speak, and I used to be of the school of thought to be like, that's ridiculous, you should start speaking from the start. But I realized that I have to have some sensitivity to the issue that ready doesn't mean fluent. You don't have
Yeah.
to wait until you're fluent. You have to wait until you're ready in your heart to speak, but you shouldn't let that drag out and wait until you're feeling like you're perfect to be able to start.
I think this is just a guess, but I think that part of the reason that you might be more comfortable as a beginner is because no one is expecting much of you if you proceed the whole thing as, oh, I don't know that much, I'm just a beginner. But then, so you can just make mistakes and no one cares. They're not, think you're going to be great. But then once you say you're intermediate, when you say intermediate, it's like, oh, does that mean you can speak pretty comfortably, like about this topic or any topic or whatever? And then if you get stuck, you suddenly feel like, oh, maybe I'm not intermediate, maybe I'm still a beginner. Yeah. So that's why, at least for me, I tend to underrepresent what I feel like I am in a language so that I would rather impress somebody rather than
Yeah.
like make them expect more.
That's a good point, for sure. Super nice to talk to you. I learned a lot from you, and I'm so glad we could relate.
Thank you.
I will see you around somewhere in the language sphere online.
Sounds good. See you.